recently started a new class with a new Canadian friend, and she asked me some questions about phrasing, melody. Specifically, she asked me questions about fills, but I want to articulate how melodies and chord connect a little bit, because that's the foundation of a lot of these doubts. So we're using two scales in this lesson, the G major scale and the G major pentatonic. Let's look at G major first. Over the D string, it's open, 2, 4. And those intervals are 5, 6, 7. Now you don't need to know the intervals for this lesson, but it will help your overall level of understanding of these ideas. Open G, that's our root note. That's the tonal center. That's home base. That is when you're parking your car and you don't want to get lost and you set a location next to your car. It's all of those things combined. Second fret, second interval. Open, B string, third interval. First fret, fourth interval. Then we're back to D on the third, which is our fifth. Then on the open E string, it's O, 2, 3, which is 6, 7, root. Scales repeat as they go up in pitch. They're 8 notes that just repeat and repeat and repeat. O, 2, 4, O, 2, O, 1, 3, O, 2, 3. Da, 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 da. Now, the pentatonic removes these two intervals, the 7th and the 4th. Note, as a side note, both of those notes are in the D7, and that's why the D7 is a very tense chord in the key of G, because it has the two most tense notes. These notes are what are considered not stable. They want to move. This F wants to go to G, or this F sharp to be specific, wants to go to G, and this C note here really wants to go back to B. Okay? You take those two out, you get the G pentatonic scale. From the root, it's O2, O3, O3. From the fifth interval, it's O2, O2, O3, O3. The relative minor is the E minor pentatonic if you followed along with some blues teachings of mine. When I was a kid, on the back of the cereal boxes, there used to be games. I haven't had, a bowl of American cereal in decades, but what I remember is when you flip them over on the back, Captain Crunch or whatever, you would see sometimes dots, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you drew from them in numerical order, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, it would reveal an image. That's a good way to think about soloing, okay? So if we put up these two measures, we have a progression that would go from a G to a D. So let's assume that someone is playing those chords for us. Strum pattern's not super important at this point. It can be down, down, up, down, 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 up, down. As long as it's one measure, 4 beats for each chord. And it's our job to create melody that connects to that. Well, we're in the key of G. So our options are the G major pentatonic or the G major scale. The pentatonic, again, being a version of the G major with just a little fat trimmed off. But you can think about it as a scale within a scale as opposed to two separate scales. What we're going to do is we're going to try to use those scales to connect one chord to the other chord, connecting something called chord tones. A chord tone is a note that is both in the scale and the chord. So what I do is I put up 3. This is in our scale, in both our pentatonic and our major scale, and the 3rd fret of the B string for the D. So what I'm going to try to do is go from this note to this note using the scale, but improvising a little bit. I know where I start and I know where I land. Those are the two most important notes in your phrase. Where you land is what the ear hears. This is the last note of a phrase. A phrase would be a musical sentence. If you're playing a woodwind like a trumpet, a phrase would be when you breathe. When you're singing, a phrase is when you breathe. With an instrument like this, we don't have to breathe, so sometimes we can get lost in our phrasing. So think about this note here as the start of our phrase, this note as the end of our phrase. We chose those notes because while the band plays a G chord, we're playing a note that is in that chord. When the band goes to D, we're landing on a note that's in the D chord. So I may do something that looks like this. Very basic, 3rd fret, and I'm going to let that ring, open E string, open B string, 3rd fret of the B string. 3, 0, 0, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just strumming so I can illustrate what the band would sound like, but you and I were playing this together without a band. I say that because ideally someone's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 for you while you practice this idea. So you can hear what this sounds like and what it sounds like when you play over it. Because what we're doing is we're targeting chord tones in our scale, and that way when we land on these notes against the chord, it's going to feel like it belongs. We're harmonizing. We're playing chord tones. We're thinking like a singer's voice would, and that's how we make ideas sound more melodic.
2, G and D, 4.
Let's put up our second idea. This is going to go G, D, E minor, E minor. So this is what the band's playing. If we put up the tabs, we're going to start with our open G string. That's both in our scales and our G chord. When the band gets to D, we're going to land right on the 2nd fret of the G string. This note is both in our scale and our new chord. Then the band goes to E minor, we land on the open E, and then the band stays on the E minor, or open B, I'm sorry, then it stays on the E minor, we land on the open E. So if the band is playing, just those notes would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, let's try to tie those notes together with our scale. One thing to keep in mind while I do this is you don't have to land chord tones over chords. You can do other notes and that combine with the chords create new sounds. That's something to keep in mind, but we're using chord tones to illustrate the value of this as a foundation for these ideas. The other thing is, right now we're only using quarter notes. We're going to introduce eighth notes here in a second. That gives this whole thing more movement. All right? So what I'm going to do is when the G goes to D, I'm going to play basic little idea. Open G string, 2, 0, 2. 2 is in my D chord, and I'm landing right on the change. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is you don't have to land right on the change. I could go 0, 2, 0, have it change, and then 2. I can delay that. I can land before the 1. I can land after the 1. Those things give interest, but again, we want a very clear, intentional foundation of these ideas before we start to manipulate them and make them more complicated. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. We're going to let that ring out. Now we're going to the open E string. Play open G, 2nd fret, open B. I keep calling the B the E and the E the B. Sorry about that. Had an extra cup of coffee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Let that ring, and then we're gonna go 3, open B, open E. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That phrasing sounds good with the harmony. It doesn't sound like a finished song yet, and we'll talk about why in a minute. You could think about a solo as a paragraph and a phrase as a sentence. When you want to finish a paragraph, that's when you need the most finality. But the sentences in between can just convey an idea. So nothing I'm doing here has a sense of finality right now. I'm just trying to illustrate how you can get your scale and your chords to come together. Next one. This one's going to go G, D, E minor, C. For the first time, we're leaving the pentatonic. If you look at the C, you're going to see it's the 1st fret of the B string. That's the 4th interval, dissonant, hard to use, but we're going to use it. So it's 3rd fret over the G. Now you're saying, well, we're using chord tones, but if I play a G, there is no 3rd fret in there. This is a D note. This is the same note as this note. So G chord, G chord. While you're not using it, that still is a chord tone. In fact, this is a B note here, and even though it's not in this chord, it's still a chord tone because the G chord is made up of a G, B, and D note. Those are how arpeggios work. Another lesson, another day. I have a feeling I'm going to get lots of questions with this one. Please ask them because all of those questions that you have, other people have, and they make great inspiration for other high quality tutorials from 10thumbspro.com. So we're going to land again on the 2nd fret of the D, open B string, but then the last measure is a C chord. We're going to land on the 1st fret. So let's fill in some of those blanks. Again, I'm just using the pentatonic for the first 3 measures. 3. Now, I'm starting on the 3rd fret and going to the 2nd fret, but I want you to note how I go 3, open E, 3, O, 2. You can go up in pitch and then down. You don't have to play these notes in order. You can skip them, you can jump them. All of that adds interest. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. And that nice little quarter note in there really gave it some movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. Over the D, 2, 0, 2, 3, and 4. I'm pulling off. It's just a matter of preference. Pull-offs and hammer-ons can make your solos sound more vocal because they can sound more human. Voices often will tie the notes together. And that's what we're trying to illustrate there. But feel free. It's all the same for now to the open E. So from the top we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1. Oh! Now, your ears might say, wrong, 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 alert, alert, danger 10 Thumbs Robinson, danger 10 Thumbs Robinson. That's just because we're mostly doing pentatonic notes, and this note feels out of place. But with that said, the 4th is a strong harmonic tone. One that falls into the not stable camp. Some people would say it's semi-stable. Some people would even argue that the Lydian is the true major scale. That probably sounds like from the Peanuts. But indulge me in my loquaciousness this afternoon. I believe loquaciousness means chatty. So if I'm wrong, also correct me. This note is harder to use though. And so when the band plays C, landing on that C note makes it a little easier to use. If I were to land on that C note over an E minor, it would sound like a C chord. But if you still had that B in there as well, it would sound Very dissonant. So this whole solo would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, no, that doesn't sound bad, but it doesn't sound finished. And this is where we talk about phrasing as an idea in a solo.
G, D, E minor, C.
All right, let's finish this thing with a solo, okay? We're going to go G, D, E minor, C. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and boom. Next time through, we're going to make it a little different. It's going to go G, D7. I'll talk about why in a second. E minor, and G. By using D7 instead of D, we also give access to that C note as a chord tone. So the first 4 measures are up, and we are going to do the same phrase that we did earlier. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now note that 1 at the end. It's okay to start your phrases before the chord change and after it. Again, to reiterate, it doesn't always happen on the 1. We're doing this just to kind of minimize the rhythmic difficulty and focus on the melodic and harmonic difficulty. But really, an easy way to make your solos more interesting is by making the rhythm more interesting. Next 4 come up, and we start on the 3 over the G chord. Again, like we said, it's not in our shape, but that is a D note, which is in our chord. Then to the D7, we're going to play both of these notes in here, the F sharp and the C. They're 2 chord tones going full G major scale out of the G pentatonic. We're going to land on the, you haven't seen that yet, but we're going to 2nd fret right there. What I want you to do also is create your own solos using these notes. I'm showing you how a way to connect them, but I want you to also create your own way to connect them using the scales. E, we're going to play the B. And over the G, we're going to land right on the G note. That's the root note. When you finish your solo, if you want it to sound finished, and 99.99% of solos you do, you want to land on the G. Okay? So we're going to fill in this space by going 1 and 2 and 3, 4. That first phrase, 3, 0, 3, 3, 0. Note how we play the 3rd fret 2 times in a row? A good way to make your melodic sound more human is repeating a note. Drop down to the 2nd fret, then all the way up to the 2nd fret of our E string. Again, that's in the major scale, not the pentatonic, but it's also a chord tone in our D7. Pull to 0, land on 1. This note, like this note, is in the major scale, but not the pentatonic. We're using this D7 to create some extra dissonance and tension. Also, 2 to 2 is what you call a leap. You don't need to play the scale in order. When you play a low pitch to a high pitch, or a high pitch to a low pitch, that's called a leap, and used occasionally adds a lot of interest. Used too frequently and it sounds like it sounds a little crazy. Then the end is pretty straightforward. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Okay? So last phrase, counting it. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Put the whole thing together and we get 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, and 1. And that's our solo, consisting of 2 4-bar phrases. Phrases don't have to be 4 bars. Just think, can you sing it in one breath? And that makes it a phrase.
1, 2, full solo, 3, 4.
Now, the way you practice this stuff, in addition to seeing and listening, is to go back to what it looks like here and create your own solos connecting these notes, okay? Repeat that for every single exercise. If you do that, you're really going to start to target chord tones, see chord tones, and think about solos that are more cohesive and connective. If you do that, you got it, friends, okay? So I'll catch you next 2 Wednesdays for baritone, next Wednesday for a technique on the normal ukulele, Saturdays for songs, Monday for guitars. Print those tabs by becoming a Patreon, cheaper than a cheap cheeseburger. Email for private lessons in the description. And until next time, rock and roll, baby. Take care of yourself.